Hey guys, so this is going to be a three-part video about juvenile arthritis and our experience with it. So the first part is going to be all about Aubree'S journey, how she found out, what we did, the treatment she's had, and everything like that. So Aubree was born on September 11th, 2013. She was born water birth, backyard. It was beautiful. For the first month of her life, we had no difference. She was the most easy baby. She didn't cry. You hardly even knew she was there. Then we went on a trip, and this trip, when she was a month old, almost actually, there was a lot of driving and a lot of sitting. And literally the day she turned a month old, we had come back from a drive, and she started screaming. She screamed for 4 hours straight. She was so upset. There was nothing we could do for her. She wouldn't feed, nothing. So we were kind of concerned. And then pretty much from that point on, our sweet baby that we had never really heard cry, she was miserable. She was so upset most of the time. So flash forward, her first year, she never really crawled. She did a butt scoot, and she was a late bloomer with a bunch of stuff, didn't have many teeth. She didn't want to eat very much. She was pretty small, and she was always most of the time in a bad mood. There were times when we couldn't leave the house because she would not nurse outside the house. So she would scream and cry until we'd come home, and then she would latch on no problem. So it was a very hard time for her and for us. And then around 17 months, she finally started walking. A couple months later, we noticed her left foot was turned in when she was walking a lot. But we thought it's just the way toddlers are sometimes, and they usually work it out. And I mean, Emery and Kaylee always had some sort of weird thing, and then it went away. So then she turned 2, and about a month after she turned 2, she woke up one morning, and I went to go clean her hands after breakfast, and I noticed her finger was swollen. I guess it was her right pointer finger. I was just like, that is so bizarre. It was so swollen, and it was out of nowhere. She wasn't complaining about pain or anything. So automatically alarm bells went off. So a couple days went by, and it was still swollen, and I didn't know, so I took her to the doctor. He said it was possible that she had heard it somehow, and during this time she had also had a cold, and we ended up at the emergency room because she had a really bad case of croup. So then that was over with, and our doctor just said, well, maybe she fell on it. Not really sure. 3 weeks went by, it was still swollen, so he finally sent us for an x-ray. They said they didn't know what it was. My doctor was content to just leave it. He said it could be jammed finger, it could come back, or it could go away within a year. So he was content to just leave it. I wasn't. So I basically said, you know, he said if you want to, I could send you to a pediatrician and we could see if anything comes of it, but I really don't think anything's gonna come of it, and just to ease your mind, you know. So 2 months passed, her finger was still swollen, and we finally got in to see a pediatrician. The pediatrician right away knew that wasn't jammed finger. He automatically sent her for blood tests, tested all sorts of things, her rheumatoid factor, gosh, there were so many things, but I know one of the big things was arthritis that he was testing her for. So tests came back negative. And then around this time she had, before we found out they were negative, she woke up one morning and she would not walk. She was screaming every time we put her down.
You're fine. Does your leg hurt? It's okay, come here. What hurts about it? Can you tell me why it hurts? What hurts? Still hurts? Is it hurting here? Right there? Right there. Can you walk?
she was like shaking in pain. So I was so worried. So I took her to the emergency room at Children's Hospital, because what else do you do when your kid wakes up and they will not walk, especially when you know there's a possibility that she has arthritis. So I took her to the emergency room. The doctor came in and said, oh, well, all her blood work came back negative for arthritis, so she doesn't have arthritis. And this was one of the many times that I realized that there's a lot of information that these doctors don't know about arthritis, especially juvenile arthritis. And anyway, so we went home kind of like, what the heck? And I told my friend, I'm like, I have a feeling it's gonna happen again. Sure enough, it did. Kept happening. So we had a follow-up with the pediatrician. He said the test came back negative, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have it. And I was like, really? You know, that was the first time somebody had said that to me. And it was almost good news, because then we knew that it was probably that was causing her pain. So he then referred her to a rheumatologist. But before we could get to the rheumatologist, her toe swelled up, her big toe. So then we went into the rheumatologist, and at this point she was having issues with her walking. Her finger was still swollen. It was like 4 or 5 months later. Her toe was swollen, and he said that what he thinks she had was psoriatic juvenile arthritis. And it's characterized by having the swollen digits. So she had these swollen digits, and he said, okay, we'll start her on naproxen for the first month. That was fine. I was worried about her stomach and how she'd handle it, because she didn't have the strongest stomach, but she did okay. And then I noticed her wrist was swollen. So then she went from just the finger and the toe to the finger and the toe and the wrist that I could see. And then so we had our follow-up appointment with the rheumatologist, and he said it's also in her elbow and another one of her toes. And it was crazy, because I had never, we didn't know when anything was going on with her elbow. But her elbow was actually the worst one that we had, because she had lost a lot of mobility. She could not move it further than this. You know, normally people can go like this, but she actually couldn't. It wouldn't go any further because she had lost the mobility. So then she was started on methotrexate orally. And then every time we give her the methotrexate, we expected her to feel sick or be tired, but it just didn't happen. But what did happen is she would get a rash every time. So eventually, that didn't work either. She did see a physiotherapist. Physiotherapist said that her foot turned in when she was walking, and possibly even the butt scooting was all in relation to the arthritis, because she had arthritis in the small bones, the metatarsals in her feet as well. So the methotrexate was just giving her rashes every time she'd have it. So the rheumatologist said that it was time to switch to something else. So we would have to switch to Enbrel, which is a biologic. It is an injection, and we would do it at home once a week. This was super daunting to us. This was very scary. To have to give your 2.5-year-old an injection at home, it was just all very new and very scary, and we were really upset. So because Enbrel is a very expensive medication, a lot of insurance companies don't want to cover it right away. So we ended up having to use prednisolone, which is a steroid, as a bridging agent from the methotrexate to the Enbrel, so that her arthritis didn't flare big time during that time. So she was on prednisolone for a month, and she gained a few pounds from it, but not too much. And then we finally started the Enbrel. Enbrel went okay. It was hard to give it to her. We had a lot of tears and a lot of frustration and a lot of trial and error trying to figure out what we needed to do to make her better. And eventually, after about 4 months, it started to work. It was the first thing that started to work, and it was like this that made me think, okay, this is what she has. We are treating her for the right thing, and she's gonna be okay. So in December of 2016, she was given the go-ahead to be put in clinical remission. So that means she's still on medication, but she's not showing signs of arthritis. So we've had a few kind of hit and miss kind of days where she's really good and she's fine, and then other days where she is just not, and she's complaining of pain a lot still. So we're worried, I mean, because the Enbrel suppresses her immune system, it kind of makes it so she's sick a lot, and when she is sick she tends to get really achy, but she's doing really well all in all. So if she stays in clinical remission, it will be a year from now around that we can take her off of the Enbrel. She also can't have any live injections, so she can't have any of her 4 to 5 year boosters if she's still on Enbrel. If she's not, she can have them, which is great. But yeah, so that's Aubree's story. I mean, right now where we're at is clinical remission, so I can hope that it stays this way and that we can kind of stay out of the arthritis, you know, so hopefully, or rather it can stay out of her. So that is Aubree's story. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned something. Bye.